I'm Carrie Peters, a recognized thought leader in the Microsoft Dynamics community and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Welcome to the Get Your New View podcast. Keep listening to learn how we work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers that they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. In this next season of the Get Your New View podcast, I'd like you to meet even more members of our New View team who have brought examples of their favorite projects they've worked on with our customers to create efficiencies, utilize automation, and simply use even more of the features of their Business Central software. Everybody, please welcome Cynthia Priebe and Cari Corozza, two of our consultants who are also trainers who both love our navigation and personalization class. I asked them to join us here today to tell us some stories about exactly why this is so important and why it's so impactful to our customers. Kerry, I believe you had something that you wanted to start off with.
Yes. I find it funny that when we tell people we offer a 4-hour class on navigation and personalization, they can't fathom what we could possibly, fill 4 hours with. But then they get into the first hour of class and usually right away they have an aha moment like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew that. So, we have 4 hours of navigation and personalization, and it's packed full with lots of good information for everyone.
Well, and the other part I love about that, usually the ones who are complaining about it are the ones who have either been using Nav or even Business Central for a while, because we do like to make this class a prerequisite for some of our other classes because it's so important. And even those users have aha moments. And I think if you can walk away from a class with just a couple of nuggets, you've paid for the class.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder at some point, guys, if we should put a guarantee with this class that if they don't experience an aha moment in the first hour, we'll refund them their money, because it happens all the time, doesn't it?
Yes. I love that. Yeah, definitely.
I think some of the things we commonly see too that people complain about are they just can't find things in the system. So it's taking them too long, or they're constantly going to tell me. And then, they just get frustrated. They've bookmarked 30 items thinking that it was going to make it easier for them to find. And now in their bookmarks, they can't even find stuff anyway. So they end up just constantly going to tell me.
Well, one of the aha moments that I had was not even about the fact that you can bookmark, but the fact that you should unbookmark. So when you're going live and you're implementing, or maybe you have a particular role for a project, you might need to go to certain places in Business Central frequently. So you bookmark it. Then your role changes, or the project is over, or you've been fully implemented, and they keep adding bookmarks and leave the old bookmarks there that they're not going to anymore. So just even the concept of regularly reviewing what you've bookmarked to see if it's still relevant today was an aha moment for somebody, because they told me, they said, you know what, I have 3 rows there. It's almost harder to find it in my bookmark, so I started using Tell Me again. I was like, duh.
And some of the other things too that we'll show in navigation and personalization are just how to make data entry easier, make your life easier. So things like quick entry, things like personalizing your screen, expanding and collapsing fast tabs, promoting fields, just all these little things that really can make a difference to the user's experience of knowing which fields they need to fill out and doing it quickly. Date formulas, date shortcuts.
Well, speaking of dates and customizing or personalizing your screen, it's even the order that the dates are in. Now, this isn't something we can necessarily do in Nav, but being able to put, for example, the order date, then the posting date, and then the document date, and have those show whenever you have it set to less, so that you can see the behavior that happens when you enter that posting date. It automatically updates the document date. If you enter the document date first and then enter the posting date, you're potentially undoing what you did in the document date. So then you go back to the document date, and all of a sudden this idea of quick entry isn't so quick anymore. So you might have done quick entry to put things in the order that you want to enter. And by the way, that's the other one. That was a big aha moment in my last class, which was that we have quick entry, but we still can tab. So of us, of this group, who were tabbers? Who tabbed between fields? Okay, well, guess what? Quick entry doesn't work when you tab between fields. So I always tell everybody it's quick entry. It's not tab tree, it's entry. But guess what? You remember that then, right? So now you have that benefit of using enter to take advantage of the quick entry, or using tab if you truly want to land on every field. But that's not in Microsoft Docs anywhere.
And I'll add to that, a lot of what we're sharing right now, these are things that the user can do by themselves just as they're going through the system. You don't need to spend 5 hours going into your system and personalizing every screen. You can just do it as you get to those screens and as you learn what you need and what you don't need. So the user can do a lot of this themselves, but there also are things that the administrator can do. So one common thing that we'll see is that maybe everyone in the company is assigned the sales order processor profile. And it's likely that this is probably not the right profile for everyone to be using. So one thing that the administrator can actually do is look at the different profiles that are available. And there are quite a few of them now in Business Central, and just better assign. So maybe the accountants always get the bookkeeper role or the accountant role. Maybe the sales team does get sales order processor, but just kind of better delineate the departments with those different profiles that are available, because they really are intended for that purpose. So just making sure that everyone in the company, has a pre-assigned profile. That's not to say that they can't change it if it doesn't fit, but just starting them off a little bit better.
Well, and even going one step further, if you have a reasonably large, let's say, sales order processing department, and you are using the sales order processor, and you find that 75% of your sales order processors are personalizing their page the same way. Well, as an admin, you can do that same work in design mode, which now forms the basis of those pages for all of those users. So another thing that you can do as an admin is also lock that down. So again, this is one of those things where I would probably have a day-long discussion with you of why you wouldn't want to do that. But in my experience, I had an organization that had about 30 order processors, and it was a high turnover position. It was not high paying. It was data entry. And yes, they got a lot of orders that came in through integrations and stuff, but they did a ton of business on the phone. So these order processors were sitting there and they were doing this work, data entry. So the biggest challenge they had was when they were trying to support all these new users. If they had all personalized their screen differently, it was hard supporting them. So they could lock it down. Again, not saying that that's what most people would want to do, but there's an example of how all these great things that we say are so wonderful may not be for your organization. Well, we didn't forget about you either. There's a way to handle that.
And I think so one of the main things that people take away from our class is I can spend more time doing the actual work and less time figuring out how to get there, figuring out which fields I need to fill in by doing this personalization on the screens. So I think that's usually one of the biggest takeaways. In addition to, sometimes it's just a very simple takeaway that makes a huge difference for the people in the class. So yesterday I taught a class and the takeaway was Alt-Q, which that's the keyboard shortcut to open Tell Me. And that's one that I always forget, but I'm constantly going to Tell Me. So that's one that I want to start using. But, it could be something just as simple as that. It could be something as simple as using the letter T for today or W for the work date when filling in a date in a document, because these are all things that, like Cynthia said, even if someone's been using NAV or Business Central for years, if they didn't know they could do this, these aha moments just save them so much time. So it doesn't need to be this huge takeaway either.
The biggest one for me is NAV users who've been using for a long time take this class and we go to the dates, and they didn't realize that you could just put in the day. And, like today is, what is today? The 17th, I think. Put in 17 and it'll fill in the rest of the date. Now, I don't have a tendency to do that, but what I do is I'll do just the 2 digits for the month and the 2 digits for the day. And I watch NAV user after NAV user after NAV user do 11/17/2021. How many keystrokes is that? And it's funny trying to get them to break the habit, right? But if you're doing a lot of data entry, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's completely true. But like you said, Cynthia, too, I'll watch someone who's sharing their screen and showing me that. And usually when you tell them, hey, you can do it like this, like, oh, I didn't know that. I've been typing in the full number with the slashes. So yeah, definitely some good stuff with dates.
I would almost guarantee you that when they were originally taught, if they were taught by a partner or by an organization like New View Strategies that specializes in this training, that they were taught that. It's just that you can only retain so much. So anyone who's thinking about, I don't need to take a navigation and personalization class because I've been using this system for months or for years, you're wrong. Every time I go through and do a refresher for myself, I remember something new. I don't want to say I learned something new. I remember something new. Just like the Alt Q, I'm not a big quick key or hotkey person because as a trainer, I have to constantly be using my cursor to point at things. So even the little trick of how you can quickly from Business Central get to the current graphic of all of the hotkeys is something to learn because they're constantly tweaking that. And for a while there, we didn't have very many. And then all of a sudden we had them. Well, where were you going to get that information from? We teach that in the class, and you can do that at any time. It's not a little secret, but those are things that make a big difference in how you use the system.
And if you ever have taken one of Cynthia's classes or do in the future, you will learn that she's a big proponent of the writer way. So there are many ways to do things in the system and accomplish the same end result, but we like to show you what the writer way is so that you can do it more efficiently, more accurately. So Cynthia likes the writer way.
Well, and Kerry, that is even one of the pieces that we teach in the class where we have a screenshot of that keyboard shortcut page. And I tell them, don't print it out here. Don't use this to hang up on your wall because this may not be right. The writer one is through. So thank you for giving me a plug there, Kerry.
And you also get this cool little cube in either paper or foam version when you do take our class. So this has tons of helpful little tips and tricks on it. I still refer back to this just to make sure that I'm doing something right or entering a date formula right or filtering right. That's another huge takeaway is filtering because some people try to use their filter and they're like, well, why is it not working? But there's so many little intricacies of filtering, whether it's, capitalization or spaces or things like that, that people really have a good takeaway from our class.
Well, and who would ever think that in the navigation and personalization class, you would actually learn how to use your chart of accounts list page for reporting? Just a little nugget there. Well, I just think that's really cool. You don't have to go find a report somewhere. You can get a lot of the information you need right from the chart of accounts list page if you know how to use filters.
My absolute favorite for that, Cynthia, is saved views. When I get a chance to teach this class, I always spend some time talking about examples of saved views and ask people to come up with their own examples that make sense for what's in their organization. And having the group share their different results shows how we have really a mini reporting tool that's built into a navigation and personalization class, where if we can show people how to use those filters and how to organize them and save them, suddenly they're not having to filter for the same thing over and over again. They can just go in there and click on it.
Absolutely. And not just saved views. If you think about anything that we're doing, so saved views are a form of personalization, right? You're personalizing that list to meet your requirements. One thing we didn't talk about when you're personalizing the screens is that you're removing what I call noise. So if fields are not important to you in your role, there are ways to have those fields not be visible to you while you're doing your work without completely removing them, because maybe you'll get an error in the future that is related to that field. And if you've completely removed it, you're going to be more confused. And the little nuances of personalization. And I think that the biggest difference that I have seen as I teach this class is that we can take real world experiences that we have that we've seen end users do, because both Kerry and I have either been end users or worked with many end users. And the more end users you work with, the more you can see the positive and negative impact to changes that people make. So you can give people a heads up if they do something a certain way and say, well, you might not want to do that, because if you hide that general product posting group from the item card because you're not the one that sets it, if you get an error that it's missing, you're not going to see that field to know that it's empty. So what do you do in personalization to make that field go away for you but still be there when you need it? How do I personalize for that? So those are the little differences that can make a big difference in how you use the system.
I think we could probably talk about navigation and personalization all day, Cynthia.
And people are worried about how we're going to fill a 4-hour class.
I think you guys could easily do a full day class on this. I love the benefits that you've pointed out here of obviously this being a prerequisite for other classes. This makes it a lot easier for people to find their way around and understand what we're talking about, especially if we're talking about a version that maybe they haven't seen before. But more importantly, I love the takeaways that people take from this class back to their offices. If they're not using the most current version, a lot of this applies to prior versions, and they're able to realize efficiencies right away. So thank you guys so much for bringing your passion today to talk about our navigation personalization class. I'm Carrie Peters. Thank you for tuning in to the Get Your New View podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, click the subscribe button and ring the bell to ensure that you get notified whenever new content comes out. If you're listening to the audio podcast, please share an honest review on Apple Podcasts. If you are ready to rethink today for tomorrow, look for the link below and contact us to speak with our expert team. You won't find the level of no-nonsense real-world experience we offer anywhere else, and we're here to put that experience to work for you. Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you suspect there just has to be a better way and you don't know what it is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at NewView Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.